Hi, my name is Jasmine, and I'm here with David Miller, partner at McCulloch and Miller Law Firm, an estate planning law firm located in Houston, Texas. Today, we're here to discuss the top 5 biggest gaps in people's estate plans. David, in your past experience, what are the top 5 estate planning blind spots?
Well, thank you very much, Jasmine. So kind of the top 5 issues that I see or blind spots that I see in someone's estate planning is first and foremost not having any documents. Second is not thinking about exactly how your beneficiaries should inherit from you. Another one would be not having checks and balances built into your estate plan to protect you and to protect your beneficiaries. And also not having a plan to protect yourself against fraud or really bad decisions that might occur once you start aging. And finally, not having a plan on how to pay for advanced nursing care or senior care as we age.
Okay, let's start. What is the biggest blind spot that you see?
Well, Jasmine, the first and kind of biggest problem that I see is people that just don't have any estate planning documents. A lot of people kind of fall victim to the mindset that, oh, I'm not really wealthy, so that I don't really have an estate, so I don't need estate planning documents. But the reality is everybody has some sort of estate. First of all, there's 2 parts of your estate. There's your stuff and there's your body. And both of those are important, and both of those need documents over them, whether it's a durable power of attorney over your stuff or a medical power of attorney over your body. Second is a lot of people don't think they have an estate when in fact they really do. A lot of people own a home, they have bank accounts, they might have a vehicle, they might have an IRA, and while it might not seem like I'm very wealthy, those are assets that need to be dealt with. And the fact of the matter is, if you don't have basic documents in place, if something happens to you, not when you pass away, but before you pass away, if you become sick or injured or incapacitated, somebody has to be there to be empowered to do what they need to do to help you. And if you don't have basic documents in place, you might find yourself in a guardianship situation where the court is going to decide who's in charge of your stuff. And that's really not where you want to be. And so it's very important, kind of no matter who you are or what your assets or wealth looks like, you need to have at least some basic estate planning documents.
Okay, well, why does estate planning get complex? Can't I just say I want my kids to inherit my estate equally?
Sure. Well, estate planning doesn't have to be complex. There are some things that we can keep simple, but everybody has some sort of different issue than a prior client, right? No one's ever walked into my office and said, "Oh, give me a complex plan." Most people just say, "Hey, I want to keep it simple. I want everything to go to my wife or husband, and then if they pass away, to my kids." And that's fine sometimes. Sometimes a sweetheart will like that will work. But there are lots of times when something like that will have unintended consequences. And so when you're doing an estate plan, you really want to think about how are my beneficiaries going to inherit? If they're a minor, there are separate considerations that need to be made. What's going to happen to that money until they come of age? When should they get access to that money? If someone is sick or injured or getting public benefits, that's going to have some additional consequences and need some additional planning around. What happens if somebody is a spendthrift or has some sort of substance abuse problem? You might want to do some additional planning to make sure that they're taken care of, but don't waste that money. Or what happens if someone's getting a divorce or has a lot of creditors or is going through a bankruptcy when they stand to inherit? You don't want your money that you're passing on to your beneficiaries to just end up in the pocket of some sort of creditor. And so these are the things you want to think about kind of beyond just the basic, oh, I want to treat my kids equally. And not thinking about that can really have some dire consequences for your beneficiaries when they inherit.
In some of your presentations, you have mentioned having checks and balances in an estate plan. What did you mean by that, and why is it important?
Yes, checks and balances are really important to have in an estate plan. And what I mean by that is when we create an estate plan, whether we're doing kind of a power of attorney or we're doing some more complex trust planning, ultimately we might be giving one individual or a few individuals a lot of power over how our assets are treated, and how beneficiaries are treated down the road. And it's really important to have checks and balances so that people, interested parties, other beneficiaries, other kids have visibility into what's being done and then have what we call legal standing to take some sort of action to make sure that someone is not abusing their power or making just really bad decisions. And so you want to balance kind of the control that you're giving to one person with the ability of other people to kind of step in and look over their shoulder just so mistakes aren't made or there's not an opportunity for some sort of wrongdoing.
How can one protect themselves from fraudsters who do not have their best interest in mind? And what are the other risks that people face as they age?
Yeah, unfortunately, as we age, our ability to make prudent financial decisions can diminish as you go on. And unfortunately, I've had the experience of working with a number of people who, in their prime, were very savvy business people, but as they got older, they either lost the ability or the attention to make good financial decisions and ended up making some really bad investments, or they lost the ability to kind of filter out the fraud out there because there is a lot of people out there that are looking for victims. And as we get older, unfortunately, it's just a fact of life, we're more likely to become a victim of that fraud. And so when you're building an estate plan, this kind of plays into what we were talking about before. It's important to have checks and balances, right? Again, it's not just the checks and balances over somebody I might be giving authority to act as my agent or as my trustee, but giving those people the ability to look into what I'm doing and make sure that I have not kind of passed that point where I just can't handle my finances anymore. Because if you don't have that ability and there's no mechanism to pass control from say one generation to the next generation or from one trusted person to the next trusted person, that's really where you're in a zone of danger and bad things can happen.
That's great information. This brings us to the next blind spot. How is one supposed to pay for nursing care, and what can they do to get prepared for the nursing care costs?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. A lot of people just don't want to think about the eventuality of having to go into a nursing home or having to pay for that kind of nursing care. Unfortunately, the reality is, given modern medicine, given the way we age nowadays, the likelihood of eventually needing some type of nursing care is pretty high, and it's also very expensive. And so it's really important to have a plan in place on how to pay for it. Ultimately, there's only a couple of options. You can private pay for that, and if you're well off and you can afford that, well, that's great, and you're going to have a lot of options. Insurance can pay, which also can give you a lot of different options and can really help support you financially in kind of nursing care and end of life sort of situations. But you have to plan ahead and you have to get those policies or products in place well in advance. Um, the government can pay. There are benefits out there under Medicaid, but the restrictions there are very difficult and the rules are pretty complex. And so, unless you want to see kind of a lifetime of your work disappearing into kind of nursing care costs, you really need to have a plan in place. And finally, the last option is, your children or other family member will pay, right? And that can be a really, really big burden. So, the point is that there are options out there, but it takes planning in advance. And again, we don't want to think about that coming forward. That's a tough pill to swallow and get ready for, but it's really important and it can save a lot of money that you worked for, and it can also give you a lot more options when it comes time for those kind of nursing care situations.
Well, thank you so much for all that useful information. And if you need any estate planning documents for the future, please do contact David Miller at McCulloch and Miller for a consultation today.